I'll post it tomorrow.
Seating, count it off. Seating 75. Maybe that's Oh, yeah. Well, it is. You're all there. So, you can go better we do. Well, excuse me, everybody. If you are sitting next to an empty chair, please raise your hand. We're trying to make room for as many people as we can, so if you're standing out in the audience, could you come in and take one of the empty seats that we have in here so that everybody has an opportunity to participate? We've got 3 to 5 chairs in here. Come down there. So I think we have the way there. They don't raise the standard. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
All right, everyone, I'd like to call this meeting to order. Let's all rise for the pledge of allegiance. Flag, there's the flag. Back that way. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. To the republic which stands one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice. All right.
Yeah, how many folks do we have out in the lobby yet that can't see and hear?
7 or 8.
Closest you can get to the door so that you're able to interact, that would be great.
One more chair.
And there's another chair here, so
Chair here. Try and get in the room.
I'll do a roll call. Jamie Melky,
Here.
Kathy Macho,
Here.
Matt O'Gara,
Here.
Nancy Rondell,
Here.
and Michael Behrman.
Here.
We do have a quorum.
All right. Citizens comment, if you're here to speak to us about something that's not on our agenda tonight, this is your opportunity. So,
Chip Ironside, and I just want to have been a resident in here for over 30 years. Been here since 1963, affiliated with the area, but I'm gonna say something that I hope all the residents of town here and outside of town appreciate how good our power company is. They have done an outstanding job. We didn't lose any electricity during these storms. A lot of people around town that don't have it wish they did. And I just I've never done it. And I just want to give my thanks to the city for having such a good power company.
Thank you.
anyone else today?
Real quick, Mayor, I just wanna, there was a lot of compassion in here and I really don't wanna work tonight, so please just, I know there's a lot of compassion, I didn't realize all you were that concerned about the speed limit on Lake Street, but thanks for being there. But please, let's just try to be civil, because I really don't wanna have to do anything tonight, so thank you, everybody.
For those of us that are hard hearing, could you please speak up a little bit?
Yes.
I can hardly hear. what you're saying up there.
We'll do our best. Thank you.
Pam Kempinski, 465 State Street. So in my neighborhood, there are a few properties that the homeowners, property owners don't take care of. It's so bad that when folks come by my yard, they see what's going on around me, and these include spouses of council members. And they say to me, I'm sorry that you have to live next door to that. So I don't want to live next door to that, but I want to live in Harbor Springs because it's really cool. So some of the stuff we're talking about that's laying around these yards is big mirrors that are smashed, driven over by a car and left laying there. Air conditioners that are rusted, broken, and tossed out in the backyard. Recently, this is the scariest one for me, a partially deflated hot tub that filled with snow melt, which is deep enough for a child or a pet to drown in. So I talked with Jeff about it. We sort of kicked this around a couple of seasons, actually. And Jeff finally has had a little bit of influence over the unkemptness of my neighbors. But what I understand is that city doesn't really have any kind of guidelines for how people need to take care of, keep their yards clean. So I'd really like to suggest that city council kick around the idea of coming up with at least some basic guidelines so that people, property owners, keep their yards clean and safe and tidy. Thank you.
Anyone else for public comment? No? Anyone on the computer? Look like it. All right, I guess we can move on to the consent agenda. Any issues at the table? Kathy, anything on the consent agenda? Michael? No. Entertain a motion. So move.
Second.
Kathy Macho,
Yes.
Michael Behrman,
Yes.
Matt Bulgara,
Yes.
Nancy Rondell,
Yes.
Jamie Melky.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Very good. Okay, we're gonna change up the format a little bit tonight. We're gonna do our work. Before we open it up to public comment. We should be able to get through this fairly quickly. We've got, 4 things right now in front of us to do with the zoning code that we have to discuss. And then we're, gonna change the format this evening. And we're gonna do our work first before I open it up to public comment. And we've got 4 items and maybe some additional items that we're gonna work through, that have to do with the zoning code. And then we'll, open up the floor to public comment. Okay. Any questions? Away we go. Okay, we've got a list of 4 things that have come up. Triplexes, minimum dwelling sizes, so building height in the CBD, and home occupations.
I'm just telling you,
Oh.
there should be in the back.
There it is.
There it is. All right, is there anything else we want to add to this list of 4 that we're concerned with?
I would add outdoor display of goods. Here. I would add outdoor display of goods downtown.
Sure. Okay, and I'd like to add flag lots to this also. There seemed to be a lot of pushback on those. And we can use the same matrix that Beckett and Rader put together for us on these 2 other items. All right, the first item is triplexes. And the proposed ordinance provides an opportunity for triplexes in the RN, RW, RM, and B1 zoning districts with special approval, which requires a public hearing before the planning commission as part of the approval process. So if someone wanted to build a triplex in town, they'd have to go through the process with the planning commission and get special approval for it. We've got a couple of choices. We can allow triplexes in the RN district as a special approval use. Allow a triplex in the RW district as a special approval use. And allow a triplex in the B1 district as a special approval use. We can leave that alone, or we can make revisions. Any discussion on consideration, Kathy?
When we say a special approval use, what we're saying is that this is a requirement that goes. What steps does this go through? Jeff, is that something you can clarify?
Yes, so the special land use approval process that's the process that requires us when we have an application for that. We notify the property owners within 300 feet of the property. We put a notice in the paper as well. And then we have that plan available for the public to come in and review prior to the meeting. And then during the course of the meeting, it is up to that applicant to demonstrate how they're meeting the 8 standards that would be required for special land use approval. If the planning commission feels that they have met that standard, then they can choose to approve that project. If they are convinced by people that come in with potential concerns, they could choose to adopt that and approve that project for special land use approval with conditions that might be needed.
Okay.
Or they could decide that the applicant has not met the standards and not approve the project.
And when you're talking about the special approval standards, it's a given that there are already setbacks, front, back, side that would have to be, and square footage percentages that would have to be followed as well as any additional.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
These would be standards that are in addition to that,
Okay.
yes.
Because a triplex has to meet the same size as a single family home in all.
Yep, they're subject to the same setbacks, they're subject to the same.
The audience, please, because we can't hear what Nancy's saying back here. We need a microphone, because nobody can hear.
We don't have a microphone, I'm sorry.
Just speak up a little bit.
Or stand up to talk.
Okay, we'll stand up. We'll stand up.
So yes, in addition to the setback standards, the maximum lot coverage standard of 40%, they have to meet the same standards as any other single family home. There's a specific criteria of 8 standards that's laid out in the zoning code that would apply beyond those to any special land use approval process.
Can you hear me in the back if I talk this loud?
Yes.
Can you guys hear me? Okay. There also is a fee connected with a special land use, correct? There's
Yep.
a fee schedule that has to be met, and it sometimes takes several planning commission meetings, depending on it. So, and it's the same as any special land use, so a lot of hoops to jump through before you can build a triplex.
The triplexes would not be a by use.
By right.
Right, or by right
No.
use. Right.
Correct, it is not a by right use. By requiring special land use approval, it requires that extra effort from the property owner or applicant to come in and to do that.
And the neighbors are notified for a special land use.
Yes.
Correct. Yeah.
Are you speaking specifically to new construction or?
We're not open for public comment right now, sorry. But yes, it would be new construction.
So existing construction.
This, if I can clarify, because I think that is a good question, this would apply to any new construction for those proposed uses or a change in use of an existing building.
Thank you, Jen.
So if you had an existing building, you couldn't, to convert it to a triplex, you would have to get a special use.
Yes, you would have to go through this process.
Okay.
How much weight does the neighbor's opinion have on the planning commission?
You're gonna have to-
Ellie, how much? Sorry. Yes, how much consideration does the planning commission take when the neighbors have a say?
That's a really good question, and I think the answer is going to be dependent on how much consideration is due to those concerns based on how much those concerns relate to the 7 or 8 standards. One of the standards, for instance, is regarding pedestrian and vehicular traffic. So if someone brings up a concern regarding that aspect of a project, then that's suitably, a concern that needs to be weighed and there needs to be a good answer to. If someone's concern is maybe more that they disagree with the color of the paint of the proposed structure or something, then that's going to have less of an impact on consideration because it doesn't pertain to those standards.
And the height restrictions on triplexes are the same as single-family dwellings in the RN under the proposal, correct?
That is correct.
35.
2 stories and 35 feet.
Right.
What
Yes.
about in the B1 district?
B1 district, if they're, if, I believe if we look at the language in B1, if you're choosing to build a residential style structure, it refers you to the residential sections, and they have similar standards. Yes, so 2 stories, 35 feet.
All right, what do you think? More discussion? You ready to leave it alone, change it?
I'd leave it alone. I think there's enough safeguards, to protect some of the concerns that we've heard. So I would leave it alone. All 3 of them.
I would agree with you on that. Okay.
I don't know.
Michael? You have anything to contribute?
I would leave it as is in the our end districts, but, and obviously they're in the residential multiple district as well. I'm not so sure about the RW and the B1 districts, specifically the RW district. Maybe the B1. Our end district is expanded, quite a bit. That includes most of our residential areas, so with the safeguards, I think I'm comfortable with that. I don't know about the RW district, though.
I would agree with that.
I have some questions about that. I think B1, our convenience business district. I would consider that. I don't so much have some doubts or questions about that.
Okay.
And I agree. I like I like the special approvals I like the special approvals that we're talking about with the triplexes and in the RN, so I would be in favor of leaving that as it is. I share some of the concerns about the RW and the B1 districts. I'm just not clear whether we need to allow that. So.
So I guess what I'm hearing is RN, residential neighborhood,
Yes.
we can leave that one alone. The RW, residential waterfront. Do we want to add some additional safeguards or just not allow them? Or
Can I just ask what your hesitation is can you not hear me?
No.
I'm sorry. I'm asking what the hesitation is with not allowing them in B1 and RW, just so I understand. Because RW lots are bigger. I'm looking for them, right? So that, and I'm just wondering what the reason is to not allow them, or what your concern is with allowing them there.
I guess I see, to me, there's enough differentiation between the characteristic of our RW zone, enough differentiation from our newly created RN zone that I do think triplex would be out of character in that area. I do think they'd be okay in the B1 district. I'm more comfortable with that. But I do think that honestly, I do think the triplexes would be a bit out of character in our waterfront residential districts.
I think we're all right on the B1 to allow
I'm okay with that.
B1.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
And
just disallowed in the waterfront? Kathy?
I guess I'm not clear what extra we needed for the RW if we wanted to have it be more than a special, what additional level is there to require other than, you know, saying no outright.
I guess, regarding the question of what additional requirements there could be, you could, if you felt that just having it as a special land use wasn't enough, you could add extra requirements, more restrictive than what's in the zoning code per se. You could have larger setback requirements. You could have other specific requirements, such as, let's say that one issue that you don't like about a triplex is if there were going to be multiple entrances on the same face of the building, you could maybe require that each entrance has to be in a different face. So you have one on one side of the building, one on the other, or something like that. Those are some potential types of additional things that could be added. Yeah, I don't know what else to add to that.
Okay, thanks.
So, are we comfortable with just the special land use, or do we want to make it more difficult in the RW?
What you could do, if you would like, is maybe remove it in that district for now and maybe kick it back to the planning commission for them to come up with those extra standards that you might like to put in place. And they could get some feedback at that point.
So make a reasonable request?
That's fine.
So you're gonna pull it out, go with a request.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I'm understanding just by consensus here is that we're going to leave as is in the RN and RM. Remove it from the RW and B1.
Leave it alone.
Leave it B1.
Leave it in B1 with consideration by the planning commission.
Leave it in RN, leave it in B1, and ask planning commission to weigh in on RW. Did you guys hear what I just said?
No.
Clarify that. Leave it in RN, leave it as it is in RN, leave it as it is in B1, and ask planning commission to weigh in on RW. Did you hear me?
Thank you, Nancy.
Yeah, you're okay. The orders by the end of the night. Okay.
But what about RM?
If they're allowed in RM, because that's multiple family. Is that a special land use in RM?
It is.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a smaller level of use in the RM district. RM is where we intend for multiple residential projects to go. So that would be a special land use for less qualifying use as opposed to the bigger projects.
And RM is the trailer park or.
No.
The apartment.
It's
area.
Hillside,
Oh,
Hillside, and there's very, very little RM in town.
And I believe that all of the RM properties are fairly well developed at this point in time.
Good. All right, so we're good on the triplexes? Nick? Is that what you need for triplexes?
Yes.
All right, you're good. Minimum dwelling size. The proposed ordinance has reduced the minimum dwelling unit size from 864 to 560, which is a match to the county's building size. So we're reducing what we have. Little less 280 square feet. So you can go from a deluxe suite to a junior suite if you choose to build a small house. I don't care one way or another. I don't think anyone's ever gonna build anything under the maximum of what they're allowed to build. As houses get torn down, the number one question is how big of a house can I build? So it's a non-issue.
but, people seem concerned about it.
You can't.
Then why change this?
Why, that's fine, we don't have to change it.
Okay.
Okay, we can leave it at 860.
Yeah.
Which is still, no one's ever gonna build a 860 square foot house, but if it'll make you people sleep easier at night, we'll reduce it to 860.
May I ask a question?
You get
The, as I understand it, 864 is the number, the amount of square feet. The amount of square footage that is allowed right now is is 864. Correct? And the new proposal is suggesting going to 560 square feet. And the basis of that was because that's what the Emmett County code is. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so, there's no, as I understand it, there's no particular magic number. Is there a particular basis other than one is what we have and the other one is what the county has? Jeff, to your knowledge?
Yeah, I don't know what more I could add to that, no.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
And 864 was just an arbitrary number in the old code.
I can take a guess, because a lot of communities have weird numbers like that. 864, how was the 64 important? This is just a guess. But my understanding is a lot of communities back in the 60s and 70s, when they were coming up with their minimum dwelling sizes, were trying to find a way to zone and control where modular homes and trailers could be. And so they took the size of the largest single wide trailer, 860, and they went 4 square feet larger so that they couldn't be in the residential neighborhoods. That's my guess. There's other ways to control that now. And that is just a guess.
I'm in favor of leaving it at 864. I find it highly unlikely someone would build a 560 square foot home, and if you looked at the footprint of that, it would be what, 20 by 26 or something. Something like that, or maybe I need to go back to school and look at my math. Obviously, in 35 years of being an educator, I didn't learn too much. But I'm in favor of keeping it as it is at 864. I do think a 560 square foot home would look out of character for the other homes in the neighborhood. So I'm in favor of 864, and I think I've mentioned that a few times. When I look at neighboring cities like Boyne City and Charlevoix, theirs are in excess of 700. One is, I don't know, 800. And I just don't see a reason to, I understand the simplicity of trying to mirror Emmett County just because of confusion, but on this one, I do think it's sort of an arbitrary number, and I would like to see it maintained at 864.
I would also say 8.
Save the applause for the end of the meeting, okay? Don't want to drag this out any longer than we have.
I would also choose 864 over 560. I would entertain something if it was more like 7 or 750, but I think 560 is just not realistic. And I think leaving it as is isn't gonna hurt anything.
So I think we're gonna go with 864, folks. Yeah. Building height in the central business district.
You go to,
Yeah, you guys can pull that slide up for us.
page 6.
The proposed ordinance has a building height in the CBD at 42 feet. That's 2 stories with a projecting elevator, enclosed shaft, or 3 stories excluding the elevator shaft. The current code, you can build the 50 feet. So the new code is actually a reduction. And we have 2 options. We can leave it the way it is at 42 feet, or we can, on a 3rd floor, have an 8-foot setback, which would reduce that tunnel effect that we keep hearing about. People say, you know, someone's gonna buy a block of Main Street and build 40 feet straight up. And it's gonna become this dark cavern. So if you build a 3rd floor unit, it would have to set back 8 feet, which shows in the 5th or 4th diagram in the blue one, 3-story option, no roof access. And I think that is a great idea. It eliminates what we have at the corner of Bay and Gardner. Yeah, Bay and Gardner. Where you just have a flat front to the building. This would give some structure in the front. That's a nice option. And it does reduce the height in town to 42.
And it's a hard cap at 42. It's nothing on the roof above that, which is what? It's a hard cap, sorry. It's a hard cap at 42. Now we can go to 40 and even 50, but then on the top of that, there can be other things on the roof that can be seen from the street. So this means it's 42 and there's no elevator above that. There's no roof deck above it. There's no air conditioners above it. It's 42 feet. So I think it's a clean, what's not true?
I'd like to make a
Okay.
slight correction.
No,
So
do.
this would be for any living space, any part of the building itself. There
Okay,
is a qualifier that's set back from the building, kind of placed in the middle of it. You could have mechanical equipment, like your HVAC system or your air conditioning
Above
units
42?
above the, and there's a limit to, I think it's 48 inches or something that equipment would have to be. But again, set back where it's not viewable from the
Okay,
street.
I stand corrected. It's not viewable from the street. Okay. Thank you, Jeff. Okay.
So anyways, I like the allow 2 stories with a projecting elevator enclosure. Or 3 stories where the 3rd story is set back 8 feet. I think that's a reasonable request. And I think that'll maintain the charm of our downtown.
My only comment or question was a clarification that something you and I discussed, Jeff, in a meeting a couple of some weeks ago. Of the existing buildings in town. The First Community Bank building is about 45 feet tall, correct?
It's probably one of the tallest ones. I don't know the exact height offhand
Okay,
right
I
now, but
believe
yes.
that's what you gave us when you had done. So essentially, that's already taller than what we're talking about for the maximum height
Yes.
of the buildings in the CBD. Okay, thank you very much.
So the only tall buildings in town would be the Cottage Company project, the bank. I guess the New York buildings over 42, depending where you measure it.
The old City Hall,
And
and
City Hall.
believe in that
Oh,
same was
that's-
about 40.
Way
That's and that's, I don't even think I included the spire in that height, so.
Right.
Yeah, the church is fine.
Yeah.
That's not in the CBD though.
Right.
Oh, well, there is one in there, yeah. If I strike that, reverse.
So just to summarize this, the new zoning code that's being presented would be more restrictive than what we have at this point.
Yes.
With PDDs, it is.
Well, in addition, there's some architectural requirements as well that are in there, ranging from, you know, vertical lines to signage. And I think that third floor setback combined with those architectural requirements for the that downtown overlay, I think it really you know, is a very good effort, I think, of maintaining the character of Main Street, or excuse me, our downtown area.
I like it, it's good. Okay, so I guess by consensus, we're gonna go with the second choice. 2 stories with an elevator, or 3 stories with an 8-foot setback. All right, moving on. Home occupations. The proposed home occupation standards are the same as the existing code, except they will not require special approval. So if you're a CPA or a seamstress, you can operate a business out of your home. We can either allow it or we can have them seek special approval
I'll go to the administrative council.
with the administrative council, which is Jeff, Bill Mulder, and
John Michelangelo.
John, the planning
Plan.
guy. Just those 3?
No, I think the city manager and the city attorney are on that administrative committee as well.
Say right now, there's a fair amount of home businesses. I don't know any of them off the top of my head, but I'm sure people are operating out of their homes, especially with remote work that's available now. I don't know if I don't feel it needs a special approval. And if they wanted to open something that was attracting cars, that's not allowed anymore. So.
And just to remind everybody that we do still have specific regulations and standards for a home occupation that have to be abided by.
Right.
Regardless of whether it's an administrative approval or a special land use approval by the planning commission.
They still have to pull a business permit.
Merchant's license, the whole bit, you know, there are standards, they have to be conducted inside of the building, they can't have something that's outdoors, other things like that, it's quite limiting.
Signage standards can't be a nuisance. Signage standards can't be a nuisance to the you know, surrounding area. I brought this up quite frankly because my wife does operate a home occupation, a dog grooming business. And she did go through the special land use provisions. And I think it's important to have guardrails on that. I think special land use and going before planning commission might be too much. But yet having some guardrails, I think is a good idea. You know, if I'm tutoring somebody out of my house or I'm a seamstress and nobody, you know, it's quiet and my neighbors don't care. That's a moral dilemma. Do I go ahead and then seek approval from the administrative review committee? I wouldn't know what to tell you, but I think for somebody like my wife's business, where, yeah, people are dropping off dogs, it's totally contained in the house. We've met those standards, but somebody looked at it, and that's why I brought it up. I think some guardrails are okay and necessary. Again, I get that if I'm teaching somebody music lessons and it's quiet and nobody really knows, and you know, a couple of students a week or whatever, you know, I understand why I have to go through an administrative review. But on the other hand, a home occupation can be anything, but not anything. There are some, if you go ahead and look at it, there are some restrictions of what they can be. But still, I do think it's important to have some guardrails on that. And not just make it a by right, thing to do with a little asterisk that says, oh, by the way, follow these 8 standards, or how many there are. So that's why I brought it up. I'm not gonna live and die on it, certainly, but, I guess, you know, we're rule followers and went through the process.
Can I ask a question? Is there a fee that would be involved in going through an administrative review committee versus a special use permit, or is it just paperwork?
No, there's, at an administrative level, that fee could be kept down, to a minimum. You know, just to cover the time necessary to review that, and some of those fees are pretty minimal. To provide some background, a special land use request, the fee for that is kind of extensive. That requires submitting it 30 days in advance of the planning commission meeting. It requires the same notice of the paper and notice of surrounding property owners, just like any other special land use. Also, back to the fee is $1,000. There is the potential that the applicant may get some of that back if we don't use all of that in covering the review and standards and whatnot. But typically that most of that is used. So it's financially a substantial step up in cost. It's also a large step up in the time requirement of having to submit that application 30 days in advance of the meeting. So depending on when they submit that, it could be almost 2 months out before they actually have their requests reviewed by the planning commission.
What would be a guesstimate of a fee for administrative review? You know, well, I know it's hard to say, but.
Why don't I give you some examples of some other fees for other applications that we have? The merchant's license application is $100. A signage permit for putting a sign on your building is $25. A fence permit, the fee for that one is $0. We try to keep that fee low so that people make sure to come in and, you know, deal with that, because that is something that's typically it's allowed right on the property line. So we want to make sure that there's little impact on somebody having to come in and submit that. More expensive fees would be like the submission of a zoning permit to build a structure. And that is basically 20 cents per square foot with a minimum of, I believe, 75 and a maximum of 250.
On the home occupations, are they allowed to have a sign?
They can have minimal directional signage to
Right.
indicate where they're, you know, let's say that I have a hairdressing, you know, office in the back of my shop or something. I can have some directional signage on my home, say entrance to Jeff's barber shop around the corner. But I can't have any like signage out by the street advertising my business.
Good. I guess we keep it as a special approval, or?
Right now, it's not a special. Am I right? Right now, it's a by right use. I mean, in the proposed code, it's a by right use. What Michael was saying was maybe thinking about taking it through the administrative review committee as opposed to a special land use. I definitely don't think it should be a special land use. I mean, I don't think that makes sense. One of my concerns with taking it through the administrative review, we have tons of them in town right now. Occupational, home occupations that people do work from home all the time. There's no way for us to monitor this, really. And I hate putting rules in place that we can't monitor. That doesn't make sense to me, but again, you know, if everybody else thinks it should be administrative review, I can live with that. I think it's over.
But to some extent, it can be, because they still have to file paperwork that says they're operating a business, right?
They're supposed to.
Right, so I mean, I don't think that it hurts to send it to administrative review. I don't think that it would hurt anything to add that extra. Especially the businesses that might have cars coming and going once in a while.
Yeah, I think, if you look at home occupation, under 7.2.11, if a home occupation has members of the public coming to the residence for purposes of transacting business or has signage on the residence indicating that a business is operating from the residence or involves the delivery or shipment of goods for sale or transfer beyond that customary for a residence, then such home occupation shall meet the following standards. And that's the 8.6, listed. I think certainly if my neighbor was tutoring a few kids a week or was hemming a few dresses for people and there really wasn't coming and going, I'm not gonna turn her in. Don't tell her that. And she doesn't do that, by the way. But I understand, we probably have a lot of them out there, as was mentioned, maybe a CPA that does work from his home.
What about a bigger business, like a cookie shop or a coffee shop?
That's not allowed. That's not allowed.
Sorry.
Yeah, a commercial business like that isn't allowed, it's residential. Under the new code.
It potentially could be allowed. It would have to be a very small operation. If you look at the 6 standards that are in there, the only employees can be the person running the business or, 1 or 2 relatives. It has to all be contained within. It's very limiting. So depending on the scope of someone's bakery, they might be able to run something very small and minimal out of their home. But I think it would hit a point very quickly where they weren't capable of doing that, meeting our home occupation rules, and they would have to find a commercial location to do that in.
So they could make cookies and sell them at the harbor market, but they can't make cookies and sell them out of their house.
I think if they got to a point where they were having dozens of cars there every day, then they've exceeded what the home occupation is designed for.
Right. Okay. Special approval or administrative review?
I would be in favor of administrative review.
Yes. If we're gonna do any kind of approval, I'd be in favor of administrative.
Right.
Absolutely.
I think administrative review would be good.
So we need.
Yeah, all right with that? Okay. Maintain standard, but require review and approval by the administrative review committee.
We just.
Like and outdoor display.
Outdoor displays. Outdoor displays, we allowed them during COVID. You couldn't go inside
We're in the CBD.
in the CBD. The business district. Now that COVID's over, you can go inside stores again, do your shopping. I'm not a big fan of outdoor displays. I think it cheapens the downtown, makes it look like a tourist town. But I don't think Harbor Springs is a tourist town. I think we're a resort town. And, our planner, I believe, said we should kick this one to the DDA to get their opinion on it. So anyways, that's my opinion on outdoor displays, short and sweet.
So you wanna take them out?
Yes.
You want to not allow them? Is that in the zoning code?
No, that's.
Not what you're saying?
I'll
Okay.
I'll talk really quick because I brought it up. My concern is that it really clogs up the sidewalk between the benches and the bike racks and people walking and dogs and bikes and everything that's going on downtown. And so I think that it is worth kicking it back to the DDA and getting their insight and talking to the store owners. And just seeing what they have to say. I don't think we should leave it in the code just because it was something we allowed during COVID when people weren't allowed to necessarily be in the store. So I would be in favor of taking it out of the code and sending it to the DDA to get their opinion.
Kathy, Michael?
I don't have a strong opinion on this one, really, one way or the other. And I think having the DDA's input, though, is a valid point.
Agreed, agreed. So do we take it out of the code and kick it to the DDA for some suggestions?
So when we,
Sidewalks aren't gonna get bigger.
so when we take it out of the code.
Why
then
send
it
it to
means-
the DDA?
When we take it out of the code, it means it's not allowed. I mean, that's what happened,
That's what-
that's what it would mean, which is okay. I'm not saying yes or no. We can always do something with it later, once we get there.
If we take it out of the code, then
Then-
outdoor displays wouldn't be allowed.
Would not be allowed. If it's not mentioned in the code, then they can't do it. So then DDA can weigh in on it. We could take a look at it another time. I'm just clarifying what these guys are saying they want.
We could put it back in the code, or we could do a ordinance or some other.
Different.
I think that's how it got allowed, was by ordinance. During COVID.
Are there not certain times of year or events when this is allowed
Sidewalk sales.
now?
Sidewalk sales.
Okay,
It's
does
allowed,
that change? Does any of this change that one way or the other?
no, it's allowed all the time right now because of the code, because of COVID.
Got it. Okay,
Right.
thank you.
But I would say that obviously we would want it available during sidewalk sales, but only during sidewalk sales potentially.
You can do that. There's a way to do
That's
that.
just council approval. Right. Okay, so I'm hearing we should
Take it out.
take it out and kick it to the DDA for any changes or future plans. All right. And flag lots. We've heard a lot about flag lots. I think in the right circumstance, a flag lot would be a great idea. Is it, I think it needs to be a special approval, which I'm not sure if it's a by right now.
I don't know how you make it a special approval because
Yeah,
we
I'm
get
not-
a new lot.
I'm not sure if special land use approval would be a proper path for a lot split or a land division. That I think that's generally more of the use of the property as opposed to the allowance of size. So that might not be, if there's some other types of regulations that you'd like to make sure that a flag lot would have to abide by, we could certainly come up with something to help with that. But a land use approval, I don't think would be appropriate for a land split. Is that?
Would a PUD help control it? I know it's a lot more
Yeah.
difficult to do.
Yeah, we could certainly require the method of split approval or the process for approval for a flag lot and how it can be done. For instance, when with property splits, some of that language is in the city code and some is in the zoning code. Zoning code really dictates more the shape of property and the sizes of them, but then the process for approval and the method of application is in the city code. And what the city code says right now is that if the number of lots being created is, I believe, 3 or less, then it's an administrative approval by the zoning administrator. If the number of lots being approved is 4 or greater, then that requires a different process for approval, which requires them to come to the planning commission. And it requires them to do it through a condominium document. So what you could do is request that the city code be amended so that if flag lots are permitted, it would amend that process that they have to go through. Thus coming to the planning commission and potentially doing a condominium document for flag lots. If that's something that you would like to look into.
Is that a legal subdivision?
Isn't one of the issues, isn't one of the issues with flag lots, correct me if I'm wrong, that every lot has to have street frontage?
Yes.
In this, on our current
Yeah,
code?
the way that we have drafted the language,
Right.
each of these properties does have to have their own frontage. We're just diminishing the amount of frontage that they have connecting them to the street to less than the regular lot width. But then they wouldn't be able to build within that, the
Right.
flag pole portion. But then their real lot would be behind the lot in front of them. Still requiring to be the same size. This does not mean that you could take a smaller lot.
There aren't a whole lot of properties, I can't give you an exact number, but a whole lot of properties in town that would allow this anyway. It's gotta be a very deep lot because it has to be twice 132. Look, I'm looking at Jeff, right? Our lot we're proposing 52 by 132. So in order to have a flag lot, you have to have a 264-foot deep lot. There aren't very many of those in town at all. I don't really have a problem with a flag lot. I think there are very few properties that are going to accommodate it. It would allow for one more lot in town. So for me, I personally don't have a problem with it.
So if I'm understanding correctly, Jeff, then if there has to be 132 times 2 deep, to be able to add the one lot, right?
No, it's the width.
No,
52 is the width.
52 times 3.
no,
52 times 2.
Well,
no.
let's use an example, right? Let's say that I want to try and create a flag lot.
Okay.
The minimum width for a lot is
Mhm.
52 feet,
Correct.
but the flagpole portion of it does not count towards that.
Okay.
And the minimum that flagpole portion can be is 15. So if I would need then, my property would have to be 67 feet wide
Okay.
because I have to give 15 feet away to the property
Got
that's
it.
gonna be behind me,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
Then also, if my lot is going to be the minimum of 52, in order to have the minimum square footage for a lot, it's 6,800 and something, which
Mhm.
brings us out to 52 by 132 feet deep.
Right.
So the lot behind me is then going to be that 67 feet wide or possibly wider, but it also needs to have that 6,800 and something. So it's gonna be then 67 by,
Right.
let's say, another 132 feet deep.
Okay.
Maybe a little bit less because they have a little bit more width,
Width.
but it's going to have to be a substantially, at minimum 67 feet in width for the parent
Yeah.
parcel that creates these.
Right.
Really, I think you're looking at a parcel that's less than about 0.4 acres is not going to meet the requirement. We
That's-
also have a limitation in the code that you can't stack flag lots more than 2 deep behind the parcel in front.
Right.
So if you're going even wider to a third.
I was gonna say, so if you were doing a third, then it would have to be to 52 plus 15 plus another 15.
Which would take you to 82 feet, but then
Okay.
also you would have to have the depth to be able to pull that off,
Exactly.
which takes you up to, I think it's about 0.75 acres
Okay.
of a minimum site to be able to even think about doing this.
Okay.
Also, you have to look at a parcel, if they already have a substantial home, nobody's gonna tear down a $500,000 home so that they can get an additional $100,000 lot that they would sell off. I don't think many people are gonna do that.
Mhm.
That maybe they would, but I think that would be rare. So, and most properties in Harbor Springs are encumbered by existing homes. So I think it would be a rare occurrence that we would see somebody use this method to split property. And a lot of the properties that would meet the size requirement to be able to split this way are probably going to use a different method because it's going to fit that property better. most property owners, I think if they're looking at building something bigger, they're gonna maybe put in a road or do whatever they can, to make it really look nice. This is a suitable option for someone if they don't have enough property where they can put in a road to provide access and everybody has frontage on the road. But it's certainly a larger parcel than what they're, what they would want to use for a single family home.
And currently, what is the zoning on for that kind of,
They're not allowed.
it's not
Like,
allowed.
they're not.
So you can't do this kind of a lot split. You might be
Right.
able to do other kinds of lot splits, but not this particular one
Correct.
under the
So
current
this
code.
would be a new.
It's just an option for.
It's a new option for new properties. Okay, thank you.
User. Yeah.
It's not that easy to do. It
Right.
won't be that nice.
Scratch flag. Lead flag.
I,
Louder.
I think that I would say because there aren't really that many, and if somebody really wanted to do it, they could do a planned development. I would say, I think I would say take them out and let somebody do the planned development if that's what they choose to do. I think that there's so much hesitation around them that I don't feel the need to fight for them.
Don't have an opinion.
If anything, again, there's so very few, I think, especially when you consider if somebody has a substantial home on their lot, which, we don't have a lot of empty lots. The ones that we do have, I don't know how many there are that really, have the depth and the width to, build a flag lot or two. So I'm not opposed to them. However, it just seems like a instance which is gonna be so rarely used. That, I agree, if someone wanted to do one bad enough, they probably could do it through a planned development. But again, it's not something that, I just don't think we're gonna see them. I think it's gonna sit in the zoning code. And really not get used and, if it's a way to relieve a little bit of angst from people, then maybe that's something that, we remove. I don't know. I'm not, I could go either way on it, to be honest with you.
I just have one other question for Jeff, and that is if somebody does want to do like the PUD option that we were talking about, I assume are the fees significantly greater than they would be?
Well, yeah, we went through a planned
I'm
development process in 2023. And the applicant, I think the process, the fee to the planning commission is about $2,500. And it requires multiple meetings with the planning commission to discuss and make sure that it's going to work with the community. The planning commission has the ability to put in some conditions if necessary to approve the project.
So that is significantly more than what's proposed in the new code, correct?
Yes.
I said it just drives the cost of housing up
Correct.
whenever we have big fees on things.
Correct.
Leave them in, take them out. In. In or out. Doesn't matter.
No, I think it's really, I agree with what Michael said. I think it's a minor issue and a very rare occurrence.
So in or out.
So leave them in.
You want in or out? I'd say no, or take it out.
Yeah, because they can do it out there all. This flag lots are out. All right, and the good news, you can approve the zoning code tonight, so you can all take a deep breath for a couple of weeks. We have to have the final document available before we can approve it. So we've got our work done. I guess it's time.
Can I read a statement I made? If you'll indulge me, please, sorry to lengthen the meeting. First of all, as a resident who works as a school bus driver and lives full-time in our city, who was the former superintendent of Harbor Springs Public Schools, president of Kiwanis, and elected city council member, I love our town and have always felt humbled to serve in any capacity. The passion our residents, taxpayers, and community members have for this issue is immense. I've received and responded to emails, read editorials in the Harbor Light, indoctrinated myself in all the documents, and fully aware of the advocacy of the We Love Harbor Springs 501c4, and have talked to countless neighbors and voters, hearing opinions both in favor and against the proposed zoning code changes. I believe that Planning Commission has acted with transparency, due diligence, and has placed a great deal of thought into these proposed changes. They have conducted many public meetings, listened to feedback, and have responded by making several modifications and have brought a balanced plan to council. And council, as you can see, has also discussed this and is suggesting modifications. I believe that these revisions will accomplish the following: bring the zoning code into better alignment with the city's master plan and future land use plan. Reorganize, streamline, and clarify the zoning code document and reduce the number of zoning districts from 17 to 9. Reasonably provide property owners more freedom to use their property in manners that will benefit them. Place architectural requirements on new construction, especially in our downtown areas, that support the character of our town, as well as ADUs and duplexes. Give the city more control over planned development projects that would preserve open spaces and require green belts. Has the possibility of bringing more long-term rental options for people such as teachers, policemen, medical professionals who want to live in our city, at least while they pursue more permanent affordable housing options. And preserve natural resources through overlays, including the shoreline protection and restricted bluff overlay, as well as through increased site development requirements. I don't believe these changes will lead to overdevelopment in which Harbor Springs becomes the next Aspen or Bay Harbor. I don't believe these changes will lead to an influx of residents, thus causing an elevated population density in our neighborhoods. I don't believe that sudden major expansion and development that will fundamentally change the character of our town and neighborhoods or burden our existing infrastructure. I don't believe these changes will lead or affect our property values or real estate prices in any substantial way. I think whether you disagree with me or not, you need to know how I feel. I really want to thank the Planning Commission because they brought us a great plan. Was it perfect? No, there's no such thing as a perfect plan. Was it tweaked? Yes. Were people listened to? Yes. And I want to thank you all for your passion on the issue. Don't look for me at 545 Arbor Street.
May I ask a question, Mr. Mayor?
You may.
Our votes were were those recorded as actual votes?
They will be written in the minutes. They are not recorded. They're just recommended changes by consensus of the council.
Okay,
And sent back to our planner. He will change the code. Mr. Raymer will review it. So these changes that were approved, not by vote, but by consensus, will be incorporated into the code, which will go to the next step.
okay, and at this point, we do not have a scheduled date and time that this will be taken up, correct?
Yeah, I'd like to hear public comment.
Okay, very good.
You're gonna review the rules for public comment. You're gonna review the rules for public comment. Thank you.
Okay, the rules for public comment. You've got 3 minutes to speak. Not yet. Oh, hang on, I know you're excited, Gary. Your comments are to be directed to the council, not to the audience. We need your name and address. Am I missing anything? Oh, yeah, and from the podium, if you wouldn't mind.
Time limit?
Time limit 3 minutes, and we do have a 30-second sign that will flash when you're running out of time. Yeah, and we're gonna try and hold you to the 3 minutes because I think we've got a lot of people that wanna talk. So if you'd like to pick this off, Gary, go ahead.
Thank you. Carter Williams, my wife and I live on Bay Street, and I appreciate Michael's comments. I want to rebut them a little bit from the concept of, we understand that everybody's worked hard on this. The people who've not worked hard on it are the 1,500 property owners. In my particular case, I found out about this in February. In that process, found out through the presentation, our zone was going to be changed to residential. Looked at the code, discovered that it was going to be changed to commercial. So what was presented was not there. When I asked why was it changed to commercial, I couldn't get an answer. I filed a FOIA to get an answer, could not get an answer. When we looked back through all the planning commission meetings, when I talked to Victor, Victor said it's been covered multiple times, it's been discussed multiple times, multiple opportunities for people to give input. Never discussed. We look through the recordings. And so while I appreciate that many people have worked hard on this, when you talk about zoning that affects somebody's particular property, we've reached out to about 700 property owners so far. 100% of them said they didn't know anything about this until February. So the point here is most often what happens in zoning of anything this big, you mail people, you let them have input. Most of the meetings were held during the winter when summer residents weren't here. 62% of the people are summer residents. So to finish the job, the 1,500 people who are property owners, 62% of which are here part-time, deserve an equal chance to go through the same kind of review that went through here, to be able to look at how this affects their property and make it better. What is absolutely clear out of the people we've heard from is they all want to help Harbor Springs be awesome. There's no fighting about that. There's no sort of, no, it's just the voters or it's just the property owners. It's everybody wants to support the place, but they feel really weird that we're approving a change without them even understanding the first instance of what the zoning change. And even tonight through the panel, I think there are questions even here on what some of these zoning changes need to be. So have summer meetings on it, notify everybody by mail. We've hit about 500, 700 of them. Do that before you approve this. Thank you very much.
Next. Nobody? There we go. Come on up, Karen.
I can stay here?
Come on up. We want to see you. What you get for hiding in the back room?
Over here? Yeah. Oh, there's a small podium. Hi, my name's Karen Opfield. I live in Birchwood. A couple things, Michael. I said in a letter that you might have been mistaken, misinformed, or
wrong.
oh, maybe wrong too, but so have I. I am just now finding out details about this zoning plan. And I'm here because I love computer work and I love to help my friends. So one of the things I'd like to do is to keep the agricultural district. Maybe we can make it into a big farm that would feed the whole town for the next 100 years. Leave the overlay off, leave it as is. That would be one idea. Number two, the historical protection of our downtown area hasn't been spoken of, only heights and where would someone build a little bit taller. I think we need to get the Historical Society involved and maybe protect some of our small buildings so we have an undulating skyline. So many details, huh? And we all want to know more about them, but the thing that was most surprising to me is when I looked up the planned unit development this morning in the current zoning code, and I compared it to the new zoning code, and it's completely rewritten. And I have been told that it contains much fewer restrictions and is developmentally friendly. So what we'd like to ask is why and how and what this means for all of us, because we've never really discussed it. Thank you. And I'd like to ask your permission. I have a document that I can give you after everyone has talked, but it's all of the what we like, what we have missed talking about, and maybe what we could change. And so I have a document for all of the council members. Okay.
Love to see it.
Okay, thank you.
And address, please.
I'm Timothy Brown, 210 Artesian Avenue. Council members, mayor, citizens of Harbor Springs. I see everyone here has a lot of passion about the town, and I share that passion. I wasn't really aware of this issue until some really passionate people told me about it. And yesterday I was skydiving and in Florida, and I would have been doing it now, but I came back because I really do care about this. I'm actually a year-round resident, but it's hard to get the ceilings for skydiving without being in Florida. But anyway, I love all the passion. I had a similar passion when my father died and I had to take over the hotel. Almost every one of my friends, advisors, lawyers, they wanted me to sell because it wasn't really good for my profits. It's an old building and it'd be more profitable to tear it down. And really, if you look at it from a trust point of view, they almost have a fiduciary duty to advise on tearing it down. So that'd be quite a debate. But I felt compelled to maintain a hotel that had been built by a Civil War veteran, owned and run by a woman who couldn't even vote, and bought by World War I colonel, run by a ranker, controlled by my grandfather, had been my father. And there's a historic notion to these old buildings that the previous commentator got to, that you cannot replace an old building once it's torn down. And I hope everyone feels a similar duty for posterity. It certainly seems like that. And thank you for everyone's care in Harbor Springs. And it's your
What else? Line up. Might as well come up too, or get close. Form a line.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I'm Keith Newberry, as you well know. I live 2565 Pennsylvania, actually 2 blocks outside the city limits. So why am I here? Why am I here? Well, first of all, I care about this town. I have, since I graduated from high school, I've lived all over the country. I've seen the results of high density zoning. I've lived in communities that have implemented high density zoning. And also, my family has roots back to the 1800s in our same area where a cottage is today. So I kind of looked at this, and I want to thank you for kind of taking the opportunity to revise your zoning because you're listening to residents. So all my comments were based off of spending countless hours on the zoning that was published a couple months ago. But I've seen flag lots, I've seen multiple housing units, ADUs, other high density zoning come into play. In all cases, they fundamentally transformed neighborhoods. We live in a quaint small town, Harper Springs. We have a beautiful place to live. And it's always been a resort town, and it always will be. I can remember my grandparents coming on boat, coming on train. And maybe the property owners, maybe they want a transformation of our community. So my concern is if we streamline zoning too much without having local control, what that does, and I've seen it in other communities, it brings institutional mutual fund real estate investors, not local developers, investors looking to maximize profit. We have a wonderful opportunity. And, when developers come in and buy up whole city blocks, I've seen it. They tear down a beautiful $500,000, $600,000 house, and they put in multiple $2 million triplexes because they can get it because it's Harbor Springs. There are other areas in the country that have shortage of housing and way more demand. And at the end of the day, money talks. So that's just a fact of life. And doing high density housing does nothing for affordability or full-time residents. That's a factor. So my recommendation, I'm wrapping it up. My recommendation is you made a number of changes here. Take the opportunity to put those down and send them to all of your taxpayers so they can look at this in detail. Hit the pause button, because once you grant property rights, you can't take them back. Thank you.
Why don't you work your way up towards the front?
Keith Sandberger from Little Traverse Township. I have one concern here that was.
Can't hear.
Louder.
Keith Sandberger from Little Traverse Township. I have one concern here that wasn't really addressed, and that was fire code. Fire trucks for ADUs. In other communities, they put in turnarounds in the back of properties, so fire trucks, once they get in, can get out, especially if driveways are curved and things of that nature. If you put the ADU in place without an ability for trucks to exit properly, I think you're putting those properties at risk and the community at risk in general. So I hope whatever changes the code is made for that the driveways are wide enough for trucks to turn around somehow.
My name is Kenny Stewart. I live at 30 Sagan Drive. I live in the northwest corner of the city year-round. I'm surrounded by Bluff Gardens to my east and a large open field to the west, which I'll call Bluff Gardens West, just for conversation's sake. This area's proposed designation will become residential with an agricultural overlay, and I'm not opposed to that redesignation. Here's the problem. The Planning Commission is proposing a minimum lot size for our city of 52 by 132 feet with a setback of 8 feet. Specifying that minimum lot size works as part of our whole city zoning plan in general, but not when applying it to these large, open, and underdeveloped land masses. The Bluff Gardens East and West properties combined are more than half the size of the entire Harbor Springs Central Business District. By my estimation, the proposed zoning code would allow a developer to grab those properties, build over 50 homes on this new land all at once, all side by side, each home 16 feet apart, same builder, same architect, all in compliance with the proposed code. Harbor Springs has a mixture of buildings old and new on lots that are large and small. Allowing that land to be completely divided into 52 by 132 feet out there creates lot sizes of about 0.16 acres. That's half the size of the smallest lot that can be found in my area. Then when the buildings are spaced 16 feet apart, all in compliance, that would create an area of our town that is grossly out of character with the city, yet all allowable with the proposed that you have in front of you. Will a developer do it? None of us know, but you do know that modern developers like to push the projects to the extremes of the zoning code. Here's the solution. I propose you revise the minimum lot size in a residential area where there is an agricultural overlay. Revise the minimum lot width from 52 to 100 feet. Revise the minimum lot side setback from 8 to 15 feet. These dimensions are taken from the R1A lot designation as found on page 52 of the current code. Maintain the proposed lot length of 132 as the Planning Commission has been proposing. That creates a minimum lot size for this area with the agricultural overlay, slightly smaller than the smallest lot found in my area today. My proposal is also consistent with what Jake Kloss, a homeowner in my area, recommended to his submission to the Planning Committee back in February. In closing, I would like to give you all a homework assignment. Go visit these properties at the northwest corner of town. Get out of your car, walk around. You'll see for yourself that it makes no sense to allow those small lots that are allowed in the plan as a whole to be all put there side by side in this new big property. I'm here tonight to persuade you to make the following change. Where there is an agricultural overlay, standardize the minimum lot size to be 100 by 132 with a 15-foot side setback. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Maureen Kenny, 134 West Bay Street. Again, similar to Carter, I didn't know anything about this until mid-February at the first Planning Commission meeting that I attended. Then the March 18th City Council meeting, a lot of us were here or on Zoom. That was a lot of people in attendance. There were 75 in person, over 150 on Zoom. And then after the fact, there was 659 views on YouTube of that City Council meeting. I think that by far is a record. Folks are concerned. Citizens are concerned about these new rezoning proposals. So because of that, the legal entity, the 501c4 was established because citizens didn't think they had a voice. They would get up and speak 3 minutes at a meeting. You get a thank you, and then nothing was finished. Hence, the citizens spoke. They established the 501c4 called We Love Harbor Springs. So look at the sheer volume of everybody here tonight. You could be for it, you could be against it, but we are all concerned for different reasons. I think there's over 150 on the Zoom and YouTube tonight, over 100 people here in this room. We're concerned. In the packet, there was 30 letters against and 1 for. That says a lot right there. So all those that are for are not taking the time to say why they are for it. So today, the protest petition, which many of you all signed, 732 protest petitions, 732 signers was delivered to City Hall today at around 3 p.m. That's the only reason we could get some attention for property owners. Zoning is a property right. It is not a voter's right. The protest petition is allowing property owners to have a voice. So Mayor, you're asking for specific suggestions. Number one, we have to bridge the gap between voting residents and property owners and taxpayers. So number one, don't look away from the legal implications that this protest petition means. Number two, as permitted by law, I would suggest each city committee needs to appoint a property owner. Right now, it is only voting residents that are allowed to serve on committees. Let's try and start to bridge the gap. And third, in the interest of transparency, subcommittees, like the planning committee, I guess, has a subcommittee, which nobody knew about. And then something called working groups. The IRC is a working group. There's no agendas. There's no recording. There's no meeting minutes. Nobody knows what goes on in those secret little meetings. So I would ask we reconsider how the city plans their subcommittees and their working groups. Thank you.
My name's Kathy Maud and I live at 7650 Marion Drive. That's okay. And I'm just concerned, I don't know enough, and I mean, I've just gotten involved lately watching Zoom and that sort of thing, but the thing I'm concerned about, and the one thing I know about is flag lots. And I don't understand why we're having this discussion, because whoever bought those flag lots knew when they bought them that there was no road. That's why they were cheaper. And why would, if it wasn't gonna affect that many people, why are you even thinking about it? I don't understand that. And secondly, again, why the woman that just spoke, I thought, well, that's such a great idea. Why don't we have like a professional in real estate helping you to understand that? Why don't we have professionals in each area working? I know you all are doing the best you can, but you're not that educated in these different things, and the way you were making decisions, I was tearing my hair out, because that's not the way these big decisions should be made. And especially in a town like ours, we have so many brilliant people that you could tap into. I don't get it.
Sure, why not? Come on, do it. But you never asked it. You won't tell me that. Thank you. My name is James Cassidy, and we have a home at there are two. We have a home at 493 Harrison, Summit and Harrison. We've been property tax payers and now residents in the city for 22 years. Sometimes only more than one or two houses when the economy went bad and we couldn't sell them, we didn't walk away. Struggled, kept them, found victims to buy them and got rid of them. But we have one now, and that's what we want to keep. I'm a real estate broker, which doesn't mean I know everything. I've said some of these comments in the previous meetings and this matter, especially before the zoning board and their work in the past. We don't need to give a blanket permission to have this mass development across these various 9 or 17 zones. People can always file an appeal. If they want to be here badly enough, they can give up Starbucks for 7 or 8 months and then cover the $2,500 planned unit expensive permit and the costs that go with that. And that's not a slam at you. You quoted the numbers about 2,500. In the grand scheme of a house that's 600 grand today, 500 grand, and square footage is $300 a square foot to build anything. And the dirt's about 20 to 25% of the overall cost to complete for both construction lending, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, right down the line. So $2,500 a drop in the bucket. I mean, it's the different kind of granite. It's gravel driveway versus the paved driveway. Whatever the case is, we don't need to give blanket permission where we have ordinances where people come from out of town and buy stuff up. I mean, not out of town like Chicago. I mean, they're not even coming here. They're going to build it and they're never coming. They're going to sell it and make their money. So they're welcome if it fits. And we
grant them the permission one by one, case by case. But I don't think we should, in the best interest of the community at large, say, here it is, come do it. So, thank you.
Hi, Patricia Lang. I own the home at 121 West Main. I'm a non-resident. I've owned it for almost 30 years though. And I'm just finding out about this, and it's been an eye-opener, and it's even been I have to use the word scary listening today to all of you talk about all these details, because it's like it's a foregone conclusion what you're up to and what you're gonna do and what's happening. And I'm not pretending to know the ins and outs of everything, because it's, like I said, only a few days for me. But this is a historical town. It should be preserved. What I'm hearing, I heard the word demolition. Oh my God, does that scare me? Because once it's gone, you can't bring it back. So as the other gentleman just spoke, this by right thing, I don't think Harbor Springs needs to do this. You don't need to attract developers. People are dying to come and be part of this community. You don't have to make it easy for developers. In fact, as I've been thinking about this by right thing the last couple of days, I don't think any town needs to give a developer and make it easy for them to come in and do what they want. This town needs oversight and protection. It's such a jewel. Thanks for listening.
Hi, Allison Larson, 255 East Bluff. I typed up my statement so I don't forget anything. You all are saying this proposed zoning plan protects property owners' rights and freedom, but in regards to ADUs and guest cottages, you're taking away my property and privacy rights. Yes, it is true ADUs are currently allowed. Under the current zoning where I live, guest quarters are allowed with a special land use permit, but they cannot be rented. They are for friends and family to stay in within a 21-day limit. I bought my house with a set number of dwellings with residents surrounding the property. The addition of ADUs has the potential to dramatically increase the number of occupants living in an already condensed area. This gives my neighbor more property rights. In reality, you are not adding property rights, but rather you're giving someone additional rights by taking them from me. There is also a major parking issue. Under the proposed zoning, the newly approved ADUs require only one additional parking spot, which is great if only one person rents there. But in reality, a family of 2 adults will most likely have at least 2 cars. Where will the extra car park? A family of 3 or 4 with 1 or 2 high school or college-age children means 3 to 4 additional cars. That means in addition to the cars already at the main residence, where will these additional cars park? The code will not allow additional large garages, so maybe the cars will park in the street. In most areas of the city, parking is not allowed in the street all winter overnight. Maybe they'll park in the front yard, or people can pave their backyards to create the space needed for these additional vehicles. This will also bring more noise and traffic to quiet residential areas. Allowing ADUs with renters has the potential to vastly increase the number of additional residents surrounding any specific home. What will your home be worth if every house around you has an additional family of 4 living and renting there? Think about new, modern, condensed style neighborhoods, with every house having a second family living in it. Of course, many more tenants means there will be 2 to 3 more times as dogs and other pets, 3 to 4 more times as many guests coming and going, with cars parked everywhere. And of course, 3 or 4 times more UPS deliveries. maybe Amazon can build its distribution site at the airport. So create additional residents will decrease property values on existing properties.
I'm Tom Varner. I live in Birchwood. I just wanted to be sure, clarify. I think what I heard is the existing height in the CBD is 42 feet. Is that correct? 50, it's 50 now, and we're reducing it to 42. And then the 8-foot setback, how does that fit in?
Build a third floor. It has to be set back.
It has to be set back 8 feet, so you won't have a big massive wall. Good.
We're up.
Hi, Council. Bill Mulder, 372 West 7th Street, speaking as a resident and as a chair of the Planning Commission. And I wanted to follow up on what Allison said and talk about density tonight. So density sure sounds scary, doesn't it? Like, we don't want more density. Don't force density on us. These high density housing. So let's talk about the actual facts and figures in Harbor Springs. Well, I'm addressing the council, sorry.
Okay.
So City of Harbor Springs is about 1.25 miles square. We've got about 820 acres. If you subtract schools, parks, streets, roads, there's about 419 acres in our residential and business areas. If you divide our population by 419 acres, you ready? Our staggering density is 2.6 residents per acre. 2.6 residents per acre. Imagine an acre field with 2.5 people standing in it. That's our density. So the big question is there anything in the zoning code that's proposed that's gonna drive density to some unacceptable level? I say, no way. Not a handful of new lots, not a few new homes, not a few new accessory dwelling units, not a new duplex, not even a new building in downtown with residences above. If I were addressing Allison, I would say, Allison, do you know how many ADUs have been built here in the last 3 years? I know the answer. It's 3. 3 in our whole city. 3 ADUs. This is not a high volume option. The ADUs that are being built are $400,000 and $500,000 ADUs. They are beautiful. And not every property can even come close to accommodating an ADU based on the density, the setbacks, the cost, the access to sewer, water, electric, and gas. It is just a low volume option. So don't believe the horror stories that people can spin on that. So let's talk about demographics. Planning Commission's been pointing out that our population is down 300 residents since 2000. That was concerning, but now it's actually alarming. There's new data that said we're down 476 residents now since the year 2000. That was an interim US Census figure. So we are shrinking like crazy, and it's distressing. And if people feel like Harbor Springs is going to get too crowded, I've never heard anybody say back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, it was so horribly crowded we couldn't stand it. In fact, if they were the good old days. We built 14 net new houses in the last 3 years, and that's going to account for 10 new full-time residents and 20 part-time residents based on our averages. So if you're at all concerned about our home building rate, it is just, these numbers are minuscule. Don't be scared. In summary, you got a great plan in front of you. None of it's going to cause problems in density or it's be confident, go forward. Thank you.
We're gonna take a break for just a minute. Mike's needs to use the facility.
After the public, go to right?
Yeah, very sad.
It's easy to keep track. We do it.
Get back to it. Got another fucking speak there. Quiet up. Go. Attention. Hey, in the back.
There are seats.
Come on. You came to the meeting to hear what's going on. Pay attention.
Thank you, Matt. My name is Leona Davis and I'm a homeowner at 325 East 3rd Street. I'm from Austin, Texas. That's where I make my primary residence with the hopes of retiring here within the next 2 years. We bought our property here 8 years ago and we bought it for much the same reason that a lot of people are here and have second homes, if you want to consider me a second home owner, because it's our retirement home. It's our lifelong desire to live here in Harbor Springs. That said, what I do in Austin is I'm a permit facilitator. So contractors hire me to go into the city of Austin and obtain permits for them, construction permits. And I do largely residential, some commercial, but mostly residential. What's going on with the proposals that are here before council and before the community right now are the very same exact word for word proposals that have gone on in Austin, Texas. And I can tell you that the residents in Austin, Texas are as distressed as you residents are. Because what is presented and what is reality become very divided once the developers come in. And they will come in. Don't make any mistake about that. They will be here. As soon as they know this is a highly sought after area, it's in a lot of magazines, it's in a lot of write-ups. There's a big talk about Harbor Springs nationwide. The developers will be here. What's happened in Austin? They ran in, they bought up property, started throwing in apartments. Fast, fast, fast. Little pop-up houses is the gentleman that described the overlay. Little small lots, and pop, 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 and they filled all this up. Some of them had to bail. Now we have empty buildings everywhere that will not see completion. Next to that great big huge building, or next to that great big land lot that's got all these little houses, you'll see the little person that's been there, that's maintained their property, that's followed all the rules, that's done everything right. And they're swamped, they're dwarfed. Their property has no value now. They're in a sea of dead. I can't predict that's what will happen here. I can just say that your concerns are valid. My concerns were valid. That's why I joined every Zoom meeting I could join. That's why I come up here as often as I can to attend the meetings. I am disappointed that I'm told that because I'm a property owner but not a voter, that I don't have a voice. That's distressing to me. I've also sat in on a meeting where I was party to hearing a presenter say, we're here to tell you what you can do with your property. And that's not the way government should run at any time. So I just want to say that I'm grateful tonight for the conversation that was had. I'm grateful for the opportunity that there was to make amendments, proposals, and that everybody did listen. And I think it's a good thing that it's gone back to the drawing board. And I look forward to hearing what comes of that. But I caution everybody about the dismissal of concern.
Dismissal of concerns.
Hi, I'm gonna poke the bear. I'm Ashley O'Reilly, 523 Spring Street. I'm a voter, property owner, and resident in Harbor Springs. I would like to bring some clarity about the redevelopment ready community practice and its impact on Harbor Springs. Zoning reform is best practice too. The Michigan Economic Development Corporation, the MEDC, developed the RRC, which offers grants as part of this certification process. Beckett and Reeder have been brought in as city planners for Harbor Springs and have received an MECD grant. Beckett and Reeder and the MEDC are corporate members of the Michigan Planners Association, which created the zoning reform toolkit to be used by towns like Harbor Springs who are applying RRC best practices. One of the benefits of corporate membership in the Michigan Planners Association for Beckett and Reeder, OHM, and the MEDC is access to local appointed and elected officials for our community decision makers. The Harbor Springs RRC baseline report says the RRC recommends by right development. By right allows developers to develop according to the zoning laws without any need for the traditional Harbor Springs approval process, which has worked so well, over the last several years, 50 years maybe. Furthermore, best practice 6 binds Harbor Springs to the MEDC contractual requirement that post-certification, 3 public or private sites must be offered for development with 1 priority site selected per year in order to maintain certification access to grant funding. During Thursday's webinar, Senator John DeMoose said the MEDC is not intended for communities like Harbor Springs. Why would Harbor Springs try to secure grant dollars when other communities are more worthy recipients? Is the proposed zoning code before you tonight what the community wants, or rather to support developers and planners unfamiliar with Harbor Springs? Is this zoning code the right tool with which to protect and enhance this community's past, present, and future? Are we as a community comfortable continuing to be involved with the RRC if Harbor Springs is required to select 1 priority site project each year? Passing this zoning reform brings us 1 step closer to full RRC certification and the requirement to offer outside developers by right zoning. Thank you.
Mayor, I'm Patrick Kenny, 134 Bay Street. My wife and I have owned our home in Harbor Springs for 37 years. We have paid property taxes. Obviously, all those years, we've supported the local economy. At the last council meeting, I thought it was particularly poignant to hear a council person say that they do not represent the interests of the property owners, only the voters. And I thought that was extremely disturbing when you consider the fact that 62% of the population in Harbor Springs is made up by those who cannot vote. And I would wager to say that a larger percentage than 62% of the economy is made up of those who cannot vote. The 2 points that I want to make, though, if we had the opportunity to sit down and talk collectively, which I know we can't and won't, but if we had an opportunity to sit around and ask questions and have a dialogue. My question one would be, why do you want to increase the central business district by 40%? What do you think that's going to improve? And I see John Leo raising your eyebrows there. Maybe you and I could have a conversation. I've asked you to do so. We haven't had that opportunity. But explain to me how increasing storefronts in our small business district is going to be popular and important for those current merchants that we're trying to help. How is it that when you allow developers to come in and put these storefronts, do you not recognize the fact that these developers are going to charge higher rents with higher taxes, with higher costs of goods? The fact of the matter is that the local merchants won't be able to support those rents, and you will find yourselves with chain stores, corporate-owned stores, stores that are now going to be competing on a much, much different level than what we have in our community today. Now, there's got to be an opportunity for us to help those local merchants. We've got to find a way. I'm sure that there is. I'm sure there's ways that we can sit down if we had an opportunity to dialogue on that basis and support and discuss it. But it fears me to no end to think that our outfitter will then become an MC Sports, or that our local ice cream shop, Yummies will be Baskin Robbins, and the list goes on and on and on. And the second item that I want to ask, that I would love to have a conversation on, is I heard it twice made by two separate council people at the last meeting about this 300 and now more, as Mr. Mulder pointed out, a resident decline. I don't understand the significance of that. I don't see how that's a zoning issue. And Nancy, I see you smile on that, and so maybe you and I could have a conversation. Will you enlighten me on why that's an important issue? Over the last 10 to 20 years, I don't even know what the 300 represents. Mr. Mulder said it's residents, but I suspect you're perhaps talking about voters. I don't know, but it's a point that needs some clarification, because I do know that our population in the township is increasing, which is increasing the tax base, which is supporting our local economy. Thank you.
Wendy Reed, 539 East Bluff Drive. Wendy Reed, 539 East Bluff Drive. As Matt knows, I attend every DDA meeting because someone has to keep your eye on them. So it was either the January or the February meeting. At the end of the meeting, the acting exiting director was asked, how far along is the city in Granny in getting that RRC certification? And she answered, we are 70% of the way there. We have the two largest tasks still to accomplish. And someone in the room said rezoning, and she said yes. So the Planning Commission has stated that rezoning has nothing to do with the RRC certification. But maybe the Planning Commission is operating in a bubble and they're not aware of the city's RRC plans, except for the fact that one member of the city commission, the city council, sits on the RRC or sits on the Planning Commission. So they should be aware. And one member of the RRC committee sits on the Planning Commission as well. So I'm pointing out that you're not asking our permission to enroll us into the RRC, yet so far you've gotten a 99% opposition to it. Your compromise contribution would have to be a suspension of all attempts to further enroll Harbor Springs in the redevelopment ready community program, is after reading the RRC handbook, page 7, zoning is a key tool for plan implementation. Obsolete zoning regulations can discourage development and investment. Outdated regulations can force applicants to pursue rezoning or variance requests, thus extending project timelines, increasing costs, and creating uncertainty. So as all of us have suspected, your rezoning proposal is not to benefit the property owners of this town. It would be to benefit out-of-state developers. Developers is turning into a very nasty word, and there's a reason why. And if you go out to Birchwood right now, there's a developer there, and I wonder why they let him in. I'll end my allotted 188 seconds with a firm no to all of the rezoning proposals until we deal with killing off the RRC, because if we don't rezone Harbor Springs, the RRC can't happen. And an even firmer no to the RRC. Thank you.
I'm Miranda Miller, 651 Second Street. I'm following up with what Wendy Reeve just said about the RRC and Liana. We appreciate your capitulations tonight and the things that you have changed that have been very, have gone against the grain for everybody. However, the elephant is in the room. Don't exhale yet, you guys. And it's the RRC. And I would venture to say that this city is in contract already a couple years with the state and Rader and Beckett. And the name Rader and Beckett in Northern Michigan, they say when they come to your town, you're done. And they are connected with the state. They're connected with the Redevelopment Ready Committee. And this Council and Planning Commission has said repeatedly, the RRC has nothing to do with the zoning, but now it's all over the Facebook page that it does. And you can just go back to all the minutes, which we have, and I won't even go into them tonight because we have them in emails and documents this thick, where, you know, the RRC was hidden and it comes back around. Yes, it is. No, it doesn't. Well, the RRC and the DDA, one inhales and the other exhales, like I said before. So kicking this back to the DDA and the central business system is still the RRC. So you can, you know, no flag lots and little residential things or ADUs. The development is coming. And with it, why do people think that Harbor Springs is the magic city that will not be destroyed by the zoning that has taken place across America? Let's be the exception and not the rule. Harbor Springs has always been in Get us out of RRC. We are told, man, it's not funny. We are told it's a membership that we can dissolve and get out of at any time. And I say, do it now, and then let's all go back together and do a zoning the way that the taxpayers would like. And not just the taxpayers, not just the voters. Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, Tim Patton, 251 East Bay. Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Mayor, Council. Appreciate it. Most of the comments that I would have made have been made, and I think it was really great. I think the engagement of the people that created I Love Harbor Springs, which I was not a creator, but I'm a supporter of, has been tremendous to show the passion of the people in this community to stop this nonsense, right? And then there were two public gatherings last week, Thursday and Saturday. They were not held by the city because the city wants to limit to 3 minutes of input. But they were public gatherings that were attended by a lot of people. And in those public gatherings, one of the speakers was our state senator, John DeMoose. And John DeMoose was more than clear that any thought that the RRC going forward wants to give Harbor Springs, Michigan any money is misconstrued, okay? It was not created for towns like Harbor Springs. It may go to Petoskey for some redevelopment, may go to East Jordan for some redevelopment, but it was not intended. And so any thought that we should run through hoops, do all this rezoning, check the boxes to please the RRC and think that we're gonna get something from the state of Michigan, our state senator says that's not happening. So why would we do that, right? Finally, I'm just grateful again for the conscientious people that have signed the petition. There are some just wonderful citizens of Harbor Springs who are known not just in Harbor Springs, but across the state and across the country as making contributions for the betterment of the world. And I'm so glad to be a small bit player in that. There's been great leadership in this room. Thank you.
Hello.
I'm Beth Varner, 2174 Gulfview, which is in Birchwood. This is, obviously, I'm with the majority of the people here and how they feel about Harbor Springs. And I think Michael said, we love the city. I drove up and down Bluff today. I drove up and down Main Street today, and I looked at our quaint, beautiful, adorable town that we have that's probably one of the best in this country. And then I watch you, Matt, and these people that are passionate about how they feel. And you mocked Allison, you mocked Miranda, you mocked Mr. Mulder up here because you were like this, because people were saying, okay, the 3 minutes are up. Matt, you are a business owner in this town where most of your patrons are the people that are opposed to this zoning. I've watched you tonight. It sickens me. And I don't think it's right. And I think as the mayor of our city, of this city, you can't, every other person here on this council has sat and listened and not had mockery in their, by any means. And I'm sorry, but I know it's public comment right now. I had to say that because I just don't think it's right. And remember your business.
I'm Catherine Helly. I just want to comment on some things that Beth just said. Just random thoughts. I'm not as prepared as this as I should be. But I agree that if I were a business owner like Matt, how far behind this change of vote is the change going to be to bring in the franchises? And who is that going to hurt? Who is that when the McDonald's comes in? What's going to happen behind this? I sat on the zoning board for 5 years as Walmart came in. And when they want to come in, they're going to be in. I sat in meetings with the guy that tapped constantly like this. You know what? You'll give that guy anything he wants. The only thing we got out of that, we were able to lower the lights and have them turned out at midnight. Other than that, he came in carte blanche. How many designs did he have for his building? 5 designs, whatever you want. You can get a better one with a little more brick. They'll make it a more feasible, but they're coming in. And whoever has talked about the fact that they're ready to come in, they are. Just another random thought. If such a thing as a flag is going to be decided by the central business owners, let's let them decide. Why isn't there a vote in Harbor Springs? Why are 6 people deciding our destiny? It should be a vote. Yeah.
I'm gonna talk. Is that
I didn't
okay?
expect you to do that.
I didn't either. Hi, I'm Melissa Georges, and I live at 355 East Bay with Carter. And we started with Kyle, and he talked about how there's a lot of compassion in the room. Have you seen it?
Yes.
It's really there, it's palpable. I used to be in business, and you had to deal with a lot of different variables all the time. My job is that, which was running a really big company, doesn't come close to what you all are doing tonight. As I said the last time I talked, I wouldn't take your job in a million years. You work hard, I respect that. All these people, regardless of what side of the issue they're on, they're working hard too, and I need to respect no matter what side. It isn't about you, and it isn't about us. It's about Harbor Springs. It's about this town that we love and care about. And you would think with this many voices, somewhere we could find common ground that doesn't piss off this side or that side. Probably not supposed to use that word, huh? Anyway. I'm just saying, we could bring this around. There's so many people that are so smart and so educated in this room and truly compassionate and committed to their jobs, which I respect you for. I think every single one of you are doing your damnedest to do the right thing. I sort of think that about the planning committee, but I'm just worried about the whole zoning thing and overlays and 19 to 7 or 9. What's the difference when you have 17 million overlays? But anyway, let's work together. We love Harbor Springs, and that's what's important, right? So let's get together, tell people we're gonna change things. Let's have town hall meetings. Let's vote about stuff. This is about all of us.
I'm Chip Everest at 4 Beach Drive, and it is true that our population has declined. I would venture to say our population has declined because of our lack of middle class affordability. And anything we do to make it easier for developers or speculators or anybody to build property here, remove guardrails, will only widen the gap. Bill says that the train has already left the station for affordability. I don't agree. I think we can still maintain a town with middle class affordability, but we cannot let our guard down at all. Thanks.
What else? Yeah, we've worked hard for the years trying to maintain the sound and keep it unique. Keep our history and keep our families here, raise our kids, make it a good place to be. And I think you're making a huge mistake. This is opening the door for catastrophe. And I think that if what we need to do is, you really should think about this. I've been told that I have no vote because I live just outside of the city limits. This is a big decision. And I think that if this changes, it needs to come to a vote of all the people, not just in the city, but outside the city. Because we live in a resort community. And we have to think, we have something very unique here. And if we start opening the doors to allow all of these things to happen, I'm afraid we're gonna lose it.
Yeah.
This is all over the place. Portland, Austin, we've been in Austin and it's a nightmare. Portland's the same way. All of these towns that think they're making affordability and all of this, it's opening just a huge can of worms. So I'm totally against it. I don't think
Get your name and address, please.
Oh, Sandy Sanford, and I live on Quick Road, just outside of town.
Thanks, Andy.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
They don't get to stand up for
it. My name is Matt Gulseth, 179 West Summit. Full disclosure, I'm a newbie, going less than a year. I have connections to the area from college. Couple things. I'm a member of an organization called Strong Towns, which focuses on how you build strong towns. A lot of what's proposed in the zoning is about, and there's a difference between affordable housing and making housing more affordable. And a lot of the things that are going on here are good moves to create infill in a city that's got land for infill. And I'm not talking about McDonald's type developments here or big condo buildings. It's about incremental development, which is strong and anti-fragile and durable. So that little ADU, they shouldn't be called ADUs, by the way, they're cottages, whatever you want to call them. They're living spaces for folks that you want to make the middle class, have the teacher. I own a place. I hope sometimes I'll be able to rent out some of it to a teacher. So I think it's short-sighted to be just anti this proposal and not think about the affordable middle. And it's not, there's no way this is going to be affordable housing. I'm sorry, I've been to Austin, Texas. I've been to Portland. This isn't Austin and Portland. It isn't. This is not a metropolitan area. It won't be. It's a hamlet. I've been to Aspen too. This isn't going to be Aspen, folks. I have people that have lived here for 30 though. I have connections here. So I would tell you folks that,
and maybe I'm the minority. There's a lot of folks out here like me that probably aren't standing up and saying it. So I support what you guys are trying to do here. I'm sorry that you've been insinuated that you're doing dastardly deeds when I think you're looking out for the city. And it's been insinuated tonight. It has. You've said it. Everyone's accusing these folks of being some sort of sinful folks. They're trying to do their best. And you know, if you see me at Legion, still have a beer with me. You might disagree with my viewpoints, but I'm disappointed a little bit in some of the attacks on these folks, what they're trying to do here.
Okay, my name's Rick Tarczynski, 465 State Street. I've been in Harbor Springs now for about 11 years. I've been on the planning commission for 2.5 years. I came in at the end of the master plan. I've been working on this new zoning code. One of the main goals is to make Harbor Springs more affordable for people, to bring in more kind of people. We don't need just rich people that can afford to pay $3,000 because they're building a $500,000 house. We want people with normal jobs, normal families to move in, because people that live here all year round with a good income and can afford a house here are better than somebody that builds a $500,000 house, $1 million house on the beach, and only lives here for a couple weeks a month. You know, it's a waste of time. People have been throwing RRC to muddy the waters. In all my emails and texts, I've never received anything that dealt with RRC. People are afraid of McDonald's, fast food chains. If they read all the code, we're very well protected from fast food companies and any kind of drive-through or anything that really commercial. What we're trying to do is just make Harbor Springs a better place by having more variety of people, not just entitled people that tear down historic houses and build monsters that I don't know how they can even venture into every room in a year. So what we want to do is smaller, get more people in here that have normal jobs, that have kids in school, and make it a nicer place, round it off more. Thank you.
Chip Ironside, 549 Harrison Street, longtime resident of Harbor Springs. I'd like to know how many people know back in 1963 where this town was heading. Who knows? Who was in this town in 1963? Okay, what way was this town heading? What were the city founders of this town? Dave Irish, Ward Wallstrom, all these people. The question was asked, you know, maybe we should be Gaylord. We need that, you know, the look that Gaylord. And you know what? The city founders and everybody said, screw it. They're right. We gotta stay as Harbor Springs. And at that time, there wasn't a lot going on. I remember, you have to remember, I remember on Thursdays, seeing the hired hands going out because it was their day off. I remember seeing little old ladies being helped in their cars by their chauffeurs. I mean, that's what this town was, but it was also had families in it with kids. And their kids grew up here. They graduated from here. They were part of this. They were not part-time residents, excuse me, but they were full-time. So let's go on a little more. The economic condition came back. Harbor Springs came back a bit. Well, let's jump ahead. Let's go to 1983. What happened in 1983? We lost a huge contingent of families from Harbor Springs because they had land that they were going to buy, because people would buy their houses, wanted to be in Harbor Springs, had to come here from downstate. We were one of them at the time, and had to come. And so they found they could get money, move out of town, go to the same school district, have more land and enjoy it. So this town is headed in the direction it has been going for a long time. You're trying to, scare people with these national companies coming here. Right now, that ain't gonna happen. They're in dire straits on their own. They have no interest in Harbor Springs. And that's not gonna happen. I think that these people have all done a great job. There was a talk about somebody that's a resident, should be on the planning commission. My God, apply for it. They would probably love to have you. I mean, did you try to do that? And I mean, you have to try and get into the fabric of the town. Because there's not enough of us to be able to get together the time to do it. So let's get on the commissions if you want to do that. Then you can formulate stuff. But I think, I'm not a fan with this RSC or whatever it is, but I think everything else, I think they took care of my concerns on the zoning ordinance. And the zoning ordinance does have to be updated. Always does. It wasn't, yeah, so I'm run out. And that's it.
Yes.
I don't have a piece of paper, so I don't have a prepared speech. My name's Randy Seiss. I live just on the edge of town out in Rolling Meadow. But I walk to town, I ride my bike to town, I do a lot in this town. I'm part of the town. And I think that our last speaker just said, we've got this zoning that needs to be updated. Well, when this current zoning was put in effect in the 1970s, no internet, no personal computers, no cell phones, no social media. My 79 Eldorado had a 8-track tape player in it. So we need to have a change. We've got a committee that has spent 3 years, and I'm not an urban planner, but those guys have gotten educated in urban planning, and they are looking out for the best of the interest of this city, and I support that. And I think that they have in the back of their minds their own interest in town. They're not going to do something that's going to crater their own real estate values. They're going to look out for the better interest of everybody in this town. And I support what the zoning is doing. Thank you. Anybody else? No? Move on to the computer.
Can I bring something up? There's kind of.
Oh, sorry, you had your chance.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
you had your chance to speak.
I just want to say.
No, but thank you anyway. Stuff is 3 minutes. If we let everyone talk for more than 3 minutes, we'll be here till midnight. You guys don't want to be here till midnight. I don't want to be here till midnight. So let's keep the meeting moving. We're gonna, if no one else in the room has something to say, something new, we're gonna move on to the computer.
Robert Hall would be the first one. I'm gonna ask him to unmute.
Hello.
Robert?
Yep, can you hear me?
Robert?
Yes, hello. I'm Robert Hall, resident of 409 Glen Drive. Can you hear me? Hello?
Talking, I can't, hold on, 1 second.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you. Sorry, Robert.
Oh, okay. My name's Robert Hall. I'm a resident at 409 Glen Drive in Harbor Springs, and tonight I respectfully submit my thoughts to our Mayor Matt, the City Council directly, and ask our City Council members to pause and to begin a more lengthy and healthy engagement with all of the taxpayers and the daunting issues that you have before you. First, many of the people here tonight have been here for generations. But in can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. But in the past few years, a number of relative newcomers have come to town with a profound agenda of change, and with them outside organizations that are now playing a huge role in the future of the city. Our city manager is a relative newcomer, the chair of our planning commission is a relative newcomer. The newcomers have always been welcome in Harbor Springs, and they have worked very hard on this legislation. But along with this and their work on these issues since COVID have come a wave of outside players that almost none of us here have ever heard of. Entities that seem to be playing a major part in the legislation 629 before the council tonight. The first and foremost of these new players is an external engineering firm called Beckett and Rader. How many of us have ever heard of them? It seems their role is to oversee the applications of all of our future construction projects. A profound change that significantly alters the traditional role of our 9-member local planning commission, a process that has worked well for many years in the opinion of a lot of taxpayers. On to the other players. How many of us know what the statewide organization Redevelopment Ready Communities is and what it does and what it means for our future? How many of us know what the statewide organization Michigan Economic Development Corporation is and what their role is in our future and their possible agenda of urbanization of cities like Harbor Springs? And the ability of outside developers to buy up many of our single-family homes and turn them into high-density triplexes that will appeal to millionaires and not working folks. What about the huge issue of parking in formerly one-family home neighborhoods? All this has culminated in the planning and zoning legislation before the council tonight, whose final form has only been available to the entire town within the last 8 weeks. How many of us all have had time to digest this? Many of our taxpayers haven't had time to focus on these issues. Many residents wonder, why are we even doing this? Why the developers? Why the teardowns and construction? Why the building agenda pushed by a very small number of people? This isn't about housing for the working class. This all seems to be about housing for the financial class. A very large number of our taxpayers are just beginning to arrive with it.
Yeah, that's right. I thought it was a professional.
They request more time to be part of this process. Please, City Council members, this has been an enormously painful process for you and the city, driven by a very small number of people. On behalf of the entire population, please consider delaying and notify all property owners by mail of what all this means for us. To finalize, please, Matt, please, council members, consider a referendum to let the whole town approve this enormously complicated legislation about our future before this takes us down an irreversible path. I thank Matt and our honorable city council members for attention and service. Thank you all.
SBH, I don't know what it stands for, I apologize. SBH, I unmuted you or asked you to unmute. SBH, can you hear us?
I'm getting the Zoom callers now.
Scott Heston, 684 West Bluff Drive. Starting with the January meeting, I've been talking about the loss of agricultural rights in this proposed code until I'm green in the face. I feel very strongly about the idea presented earlier, keeping the agricultural residential zoning district under the current borders and rules. I believe people's rights should not be removed by zoning changes. But if I may step out of my farming rights corner for a moment to talk about the entire proposal, I can't help but think that the original goal of simplifying and modernizing the code can all be done easily without changing all the rules. I would vote for that. So many of the benefits that we are being told are for the ordinary citizens are either things that we already have a process in place for, like getting approval for an accessory domicile unit, or things that can be changed directly if we want, like allowing ADUs to be rented. Neither of these require the entire code to be thrown out and rewritten. So I have to ask, who is getting new rights and benefits from the proposed codes? With the setback changes, are you going to have your house moved closer to your neighbor? The person who could buy the $400,000 home next door, tear it down, divide the lot into smaller sizes, and put duplexes on each of those smaller lots, 8 feet off of your property line, and selling each of them for $800,000 all by right. That's who gets the long end stick in these changes. Now, okay, you can say that's ridiculous, but really, I recommend everyone read the old planning unit development rules to the new rules. They're only a few pages each. In the old rules, minimum plot is 10 acres, average residential density of 1 dwelling unit per acre, perimeter setbacks equal to the full yard width. There are lots of rules. Do any of those rules appear in the new code? They don't. But sure, a planned development must meet 4 of the city's 8 criteria. Just 4? And this thing may be required, and that thing is required, but may be varied by the planning commission. Seriously, I suggest everyone read it with an eye to get out of as many of the requirements as possible. See how many you can sidestep easily. The whole section gives the impression of strength while eliminating existing requirements from the existing code. Look, what I have heard from the city is, come tell us what you want to tweak and we'll listen, but you're all too late to change the course of things. And what I'm saying is, sorry we're so late to the process, but this is not the direction we want to go. If the city works for us and not for the developers, let's all go back to the drawing board and rewrite this new plan together. Thank you for your time.
With JRE, I ask you to unmute. JRE, can you hear me? Please unmute yourself. Can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry, guys, I'm like an hour and a half into my bedtime, so I'm a little slow right now. I'm Janice Elliott. I'm a City of Harbor Springs resident and homeowner for several decades. I thank the council and staff for listening and implementing excellent solutions offered tonight in the spirit of collaboration with property owners. So let's talk protection of green space and lake views. I urge the council to preserve and protect Harbor Springs' natural beauty and reject all proposed zoning that will threaten to damage it. Please follow the master plan. Make changes that promote the protection of unspoiled landscapes and panoramic views that define our town. Please make these changes on the proposed zoning before you. Promoting a blanket of development without reviewing the individual districts with the district property owners risks the replacement of open green spaces and iconic views of Lake Michigan with secondary houses on lots and all the paved drives, the tall buildings, increasing the central business district. So no one knows what affects property values better than the homeowner. When we take a look at our bay, the winter views of the bay versus the summer views shrouded in green-leafed trees, the iconic view from the bluff looking out over our town and out over the beautiful bay, it's in our DNA. A developer has no value of our gift of open spaces, a beauty that's vital to our community's identity and the health of our residents. Developers look for the best return on their projects. So visit the famous view on the bluff, as several classes of Harbor Springs 5th graders did today. Take a look at the bank building and the new 3.5-story buildings in front of the theater and the rooftop mechanicals and their obstruction of view of the lake in particular. It's easy to imagine it marching down the street in all directions, Bay, Main, 3rd Street, east and west. Will wide open grassy yards be replaced with guest quarters, secondary dwellings and triplexes and cement paved driveways? Will the overlay on farmland turn to expensive high density housing rather than protecting this green zone for growing crops and egg farming? The master plan, and this is the point, the master plan explicitly underscores the importance of green spaces with its advisory language that preserving them should remain a top priority for community leaders. I'd like to note lastly that once this natural resources are monetized and the cost to harbor and its residents, it will be profound and resources lost forever. So council, I urge you to always preserve and protect Harbor Springs' natural beauty. We were gifted and reject all of the proposed zoning that will threaten to damage it. Thank you.
Danny Jenkins, if you can hear me, please unmute yourself.
Thank you, Jamie. I'm Janie Jenkins. I'm a resident of 441 2nd Street, and I'd like to thank you, council, for letting me speak tonight. I'd like to say, Janice, that was awesome, by the way. But to the council, I would like to ask you to consider the RRC best practices #2 that states communities should look into streamlined requirements for the kind of development that is truly desired. It was explained by Jeff Grimm earlier this week that the zoning changes are designed to make it easier for developers to come in knowing that they do not have to go to the planning commission asking for variances, et cetera, that will extend their project timelines. What about architectural style? You talked about signage and vertical lines earlier tonight when you were amending the plan possibly, but what about architectural style for new developments? By right now, developers can come in, build a 3-story building with no architectural style or guidelines, and you used the term also earlier tonight, out of character. The guidelines for style is a concern for our historic town. Other towns do it. The new zoning will also encourage developers to come in, buy, tear down, and build new generic high-density housing that will have the first floor commercial space in it. Says it right there in the best practices. And, there needs to be guidelines in place for that too. Are you protecting the future of Harbor Springs? This is a major concern. Harbor Springs will turn into Bay Harbor. I disagree with the letter writer earlier tonight. Until all these concerns and fear about all of this happening are fully addressed and the risks are evaluated, I am asking you, city council members, not to approve the proposed zoning tonight and listen to the citizens, and property owners, I mean. That's it.
Robin Johnson, if you can hear me, please unmute.
Thank you so much. I'm Robin Johnson, 440 West 3rd Street. First, I want to take exception to any of those that have spoken that have insinuated that those of us who are not full-time residents of Harbor Springs are somehow a lesser species than the people who live there full-time. I pay taxes just like everyone else, and as everyone knows, if you are not a full-time resident, we pay actually a good bit more taxes. I live in a house that was built probably sometime around 1910. It's about 1,450 square feet. If anyone else had purchased this home, they most likely would have torn it down and built a McMansion. Not me. I love my quirky little house with its crooked walls where a marble rolls from one end of the house to the other. I have old metal cabinets. I have petrified horse manure under my house for some reason. I love my quirky little house. With that in mind, I am asking City Council to partner with the property owners tonight and accept sensible solutions as a united approach to help with changes aimed at complementing Harbor Springs' peaceful, historic charm and the quality of life. Preserving the scenic resources, the aesthetic, the historical resources, and heritage of Harbor Springs does not appear to have been considered in the plan. Nowhere in the plan is there a mention of enhancing historic preservation. And it's unclear whether preserving the character and history of Harbor Springs was even a factor in the formulation of these proposed changes. But it is one of the most important aspects of change when zoning is being discussed in a town like Harbor Springs. We have the resources of the Harbor Springs Historic Society, which serves as a custodian of our town's rich history and possesses invaluable insights into its character. Their expertise and passion for preserving our town's heritage will make them invaluable partners in shaping the future of Harbor Springs. I don't know if they've been contacted or not. City Council should press the pause button on this in order to rectify this oversight and ensure that the historic preservation is explicitly addressed in any proposed plans. The historic nature of our city should not be overlooked in the name of development and should serve as the foundation for this zoning plan. And we ask City Council again today to delay any vote of this desired change and asked for by the community is integrated into any new zoning proposal. Thanks so much.
Betsy Saul, if you can hear me, please unmute.
Hi, this is Betsy Saul, 7 Woods Drive. I am a resident and taxpayer of Harbor Springs. First of all, I want to thank the City Council, but I also want to say I hope the City Council will to reenact what everybody has said tonight. Please listen to your voters and listen to the people who really do not want you to vote on this tonight. My only comment to add to all the other comments, I'm very opposed to the Planning Commission, what they are doing tonight. But what I'd like to say is, you think that we will do development and the middle class will get some housing. I have lived in communities. Do not believe that. The housing, no matter what they build, will be more expensive and only the rich will move in. There will not be any middle class housing that will happen from this. The rich will move in and they will buy these houses that maybe are worth, you think $400,000, they will pay $1 million for it. And I have lived in communities that has happened. So I thank you tonight and I am very opposed and I hope you do not vote on this tonight and you give this to the voters and listen to the town meeting when many of the people are there in the summer, or put this to a vote. Thank you.
David L., please unmute yourself.
Hi, this is Gretchen LaMarche. Can you hear me?
Yes.
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 Thank you. I am a resident of Harbor Springs. I live at 481 East 3rd Street. I've been in Harbor Springs since 2014. We moved here from downstate, my husband and I and my daughter Lillian. My husband was a young boy who came here as, I guess you could say, a resorter. His grandparents lived in Roaring Brook. He has aunts and uncles that live on the point, and his parents live in Birchwood. We now live on 481 East 3rd, and we have perspective. We know what it's like to be here as a property owner, and we know what it's like to be here as a person that lives here full time. Our daughter attends middle school at Harbor Springs. We love Harbor Springs. We moved here because we love it. We wanted a better life. We lived in a suburb of Detroit. I think I don't have any ideas. I wish I did. I wish that I was an expert on zoning and property. But we moved to the city because we believed in this city. We believed that this is a beautiful city that is special. We moved to Harbor Springs because we loved it and we knew it would be a better life for our daughter and for us. I guess my question is, why is the population dwindling? they had mentioned earlier in this program that since 2007, our population in Harbor Springs has decreased by 476 people, if I remember correctly. So I just ask everybody that is arguing and not arguing, but really just trying to say, hey, we want what's best for Harbor. We have to figure out, why is this? Why is our population dwindling? And I wish that I had a solution, but I don't. But I'm very committed to the city, and I respect everybody's viewpoints, and I respect our council. They're volunteers. These people were elected and they're volunteers. I don't think they get paid anything. And so I just appreciate you all. And I appreciate everybody's viewpoints. And I hope that we can all come to some kind of understanding. Thank you.
Frank, if you can hear me, please unmute yourself.
Say hello. Good evening. Frank Rain, 475 West Summit Street. I have a question and a request in the spirit of cooperation and collaboration. My question, has the city notified all property owners to the proposed changes to the zoning codes? I'm aware that Harbor Springs has a public participation plan, the intent of which is to guide citizens, to give feedback, and gain consensus on future developments in the city. Feedback to the city regarding the proposed zoning change has been substantial. Communication to the community has been inadequate. I say this because expecting citizens to stay abreast of numerous public meetings, website updates, and social media posts is unrealistic. It places the burden of information gathering solely on the individual. And not everyone has the time, resources, or inclination to actively seek out such information. Many property owners don't subscribe to the Harbor Light, and our aging residents may not be adept at navigating digital platforms. Let me ask you, do you know how many of our 1,600 property owners even know this is in the works? The issue at stake is the right of the individual property owners. The city should not implement single property rights changes until every property owner is informed by mail and given ample opportunity to react. The citizens are requesting a direct mail notification to fill the communication gap that currently exists. A direct mail campaign will serve as a complement to digital outreach, ensuring that information reaches all segments of the population. This is a desired change the community is asking for tonight. Thank you.
All business? No.
I'm gonna go through the manager's report. I mean, it's all in your packets. No, it's like.
This one go to the manager's report? No.
I want to thank everybody for being civil tonight. I've got a boring night in the corner.
Thank you all for coming.